What does it take to create a vibrant, thriving life? First, the sad news is that Thoreau was right. Most people are leading quiet lives of desperation, lacking in meaning, fulfillment, and vitality. But we choose more. We choose to create extraordinary lives. And the Art of Vibrant Living show entertains you with inspiration, empowerment, and education to create your life into a masterpiece. It's time. Let's vibe up. Aloha, y'all. Daniel Aaron with you. I am your host. This is the Art of Vibrant Living show. You absolutely 100% deserve to have the most vibrant, thriving life possible according to your definition of it. Today's show will be a great aid to you in that creation. I'm super excited about it. Please do take something that you get from Lisa today and apply it in your life. So let's get into it, hey? Lisa Hopper is a best-selling author and high-performance coach who helps high performers break free from self-doubt and overthinking. I'm paying attention. I've had some overthinking in my life, and helps them to step into their most aligned, purposeful selves. I am so happy you are with us today, Lisa. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's dive right into the deep end, right? Values are such an important thing in the world, but I hear tell that you have suggested the possibility that values can actually get in our way. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to say it's truth with a small t, not truth with a capital T. And I think, one of the things, I've learned a lot about this, actually. I've done quite a bit of exploring around this. And one of the first times that I saw this, I have a strong value around honesty. So integrity, honesty are like compass points for me. And I remember feeling like if somebody was lying, if somebody wasn't being honest, that was a bad thing. Like there's nowhere in my world where that's a strength. And then I watched this series on Netflix, which was a coach working, I think it was Serena Williams, a tennis coach was working with her. And she was in training, she was just missing every serve. She was like hitting the net, it wasn't going, missing all the serves. And her coach said to her, 80% of these are going in. And she went, what? They're going in? And he was like, yeah, they're going in. And after that, her game changed. And so I was like, man, there's a really good example of where somebody has not told the truth, but it has instilled a belief in somebody else that has changed how she's showing up to her practice. It's got her out of her head and it's got her into her game. And there was just this like a light bulb, like something had just switched and suddenly her performance improved. And I was like, all right, well, I got to be wrong about, maybe it's not always that honesty is the better policy. So yeah, I do think that we can check our values sometimes and see, where is this value not serving me? And I think I had another strong identity, I would say, that I've attached to in my life as being a team player. And so I love championing others. I love all rising together. I love helping and supporting the people in my world. And at times that can get in the way, because you start to realize I'm compromising the bigger mission. I'm compromising the bigger vision and the bigger game plan to put somebody else's needs and feelings ahead of the mission. So not ahead of me, but ahead of the mission. And so again, that was like, I call it the double-edged sword of strengths. It's like, gosh, I really would have said that was a strength about me. But in this particular scenario that I'm thinking of, actually there was a big cost. So I love just challenging perspectives and challenging things that seem that we're so sure about, and we could give 100,000 examples of like where it's really good to have these values. But I like to poke around and see it's not so black or white. And I think there's a lot of freedom when you can hold a flag and fly a flag for the strength and values, but you can also see that at times it might be helpful to drop that just for a minute and pick up something else.
Okay, cool. That brings up 12 different questions immediately. And I'm going to play angel's advocate for a moment with that, and say, because I'm with you. The truth is, I'm 100% with you on this. And just to play with it a bit, to tease out more possibility, how do we know, right? How does anybody know in any one moment what becomes, I don't know, a guiding light when deciding, right? Am I honest or dishonest? I don't know. Religion told me I should be honest, and my mother told me I should be honest. When I lived in Bali in Indonesia, I discovered something to me was just shocking. Was there is no cultural norm that honesty is the best policy. It was
Right.
that's just like that's something that in the West we made up, and they're like, yeah, why would you do that? I was baffled. So what do you say though, as to like how do we know then what to pick up, what to put down, and when?
Um, I mean, I love that, and now I feel like I want to do an adventure over there just to really immerse myself in a culture that has such a different way of thinking about things. Um, I mean, my truth is that we don't know. Like intellectually, we don't really know. I feel like we're a blank canvas, and then we go through our lives dipping in and out of different cultures and different kind of conditioning from different upbringings and different adventures and different paths that we've been on in our life. And so we all have this map of the world. And to us, our map of the world looks like truth, and it looks like reality, and it looks like how things are. And one of the things that I love to do with people is to start to strip away some of that certainty about this is how things are, and actually open myself up to a more expansive way of looking at things and different perspectives that can be more helpful, more empowering, more freeing, more understanding, more compassionate. And so, not attaching your identity to your map of the world, um, I think can actually create much stronger relationships, much stronger teams, much stronger collaboration, much healthier humans, like much more well-being inside of us when we don't get so attached to, I need my opinion to be right in order for me to be okay. So I think the ego likes to believe that what we're saying is the truth and it's fact and it's real. And actually, I don't know that any of it is. And I'm really open to like, we don't know a lot. Knowing can get in the way sometimes. I don't know the percentage, isn't it? Like 60% of the universe is like dark matter or dark energy. And there's so much that we don't know about. So how can we have any kind of confidence that we know for sure when there's so much out there that we haven't discovered and we don't know about yet? Like one discovery can change everything. So I like to just hold that as well of we know there's a possibility that the way I see things is not accurate. It's just the way I'm seeing things right now. And I think that's really healing often for us as an individual as well. Because that need to be right sometimes can create a lot of suffering inside of us. So I don't know if I've answered the question fully. Then I've probably given you 12 answers to your one question. But yeah, I think we have a moral compass. I think that's what I would say. I'm pretty strongly guided by there's like a feeling inside of me that's like a deeper knowing, and that's my compass point. And if I'm feeling shame or guilt or something, then it's just, I think emotions are messengers, but I don't think they're necessarily telling us what we think they're telling us. But I think if there's something there where it's like, gosh, I actually feel really bad about this, then instead of being defensive or righteous, I like to just look inside and see like what's that feeling trying to say here, and what does it want for me, and often that's like where my growth and my evolution lies, and there's a lot of richness in that. But I do think I have a moral compass that I operate from. In a society, in the British society, we have certain cultures and certain rules, and I'm sure if it was a different world that I was living in, I'm sure if it was a different country that I was living in, where it was a case of survival, would I operate from the same moral compass? Would I steal to feed my family? Probably. Would I steal now? Absolutely not. So it comes back to that, like, I don't know that there's truth with a capital T about any of this stuff that I'm talking about so far.
That's great. I love it. And I'm on that note, I'm not looking for any answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are exploring and creating together. A few thoughts came as you're speaking. I remember one of my teachers years ago said, there's that expression, it takes a village to raise a child, right? And most often we think because, yeah, man, they're a lot of work, those kids, picking up after them. The point I got from that teacher was, nah, yes, that's true. And a village gives the child an opportunity to choose all these different, in his words, neuroses, right? Or, from a nicer perspective, perhaps just different perspectives, different worldviews, different ideas on, hey, how do you want to live? What do you want to take on? And I also thought of, when you were speaking, a line, I remember a little, I think it's like a Chinese proverb. What is that? A maxim or something. And it says, if you want the truth, just let go of your opinion, right? Which, it's like, again, T, big T, little t, what I get from what you're saying, though, is the possibility of being present in every moment and saying, what's going to serve this moment? That's the way I look at it. And moral compass, I'm with you. Like what will create more love, more beauty, more joy in this moment? So let's switch gears, though. Well, not switch gears. Let's evolve gears, I suppose. Truly You, your new, still pretty new book, right? Part of what you share in that is the value and possibility of being oneself, being authentic. What in that kind of journey, what's the most surprising thing people discover in their way into being truly them?
Oh, good question. I feel like it's so dependent on the individual. Honestly, it's such a unique path. There's so many commonalities of people's fears. You bring a group of people together. We often hear our story and someone else is sharing. So there's lots of commonalities around like what we're worried about and what we're afraid of. But I feel like people's different insights are different, results are different. I receive emails saying, I've implemented what we were learning, and I've been like really positively, unexpectedly surprised by other people's reactions to this. So that's one person's experience. Another person will come out and say, I just feel the freedom to be myself. Another person will say, wow, I discovered something about myself that drove this pattern in me that's creating these ceilings that I had absolutely no memory of. No, like I would never ever have joined those dots together, but I can see now that was an inherited pattern of behavior adopted from when I was really little as a way of getting love or getting attention or staying safe. And that I never knew that's where that had come from. And so there's this freedom to just release and let go, because we know now, like, oh, that's not actually me. That was learned. And at the time, it was a really smart strategy to keep myself safe because I was a little kid, and that was the best I could do with the resources that I had back then. And that's often like some flavor of that tends to come out on this like journey inward. But I would say there needs to be a level of honesty around, what are you willing to own in terms of, let's not pretend that everything is perfect and hunky-dory all the time, right? What are you willing to own about, what's the uncomfortable things? What's the things you don't want me to ask about? Let's go there. What's the, it's like someone has a lot of success in their career, but they don't want me to poke around in their home life because that's not success for them right now. And so you see people squirm in their chair and you see them divert the conversation back to the thing that they're really comfortable talking about, but it's not the thing that their heart is craving to put some attention on. It's like I would love to have success here as well, but it's uncomfortable. When I get my identity from being successful, it's uncomfortable to talk about the places where I feel like I'm a failure or where I feel like things aren't going very well. So I think there has to be a lot of love and a lot of compassion. And we have to remove the judgment that we have on ourselves often in order for us to allow the honest expression of like, this is what I need to be working on. This is what I want to be working on. And I can give you, I love to practice this like all day long, Daniel. Opportunity comes up all day long to practice it. Yeah. So I feel like in the smaller moments, if you can start to practice in the smaller moments, when the big, juicy, uncomfortable stuff comes up, it's easier because you've had some practice on the smaller moments. So I had a text message from someone earlier today or yesterday, I think it was, and we'd had a phone call at the beginning of the week, and they were trying to help me with this thing that I was doing. And I was like, no. And I was really blocking like every single suggestion that they made. And I was like, no, it's not that. No, not that. No, not this, not that. And they sent me this text, or they sent me a voice note saying, look, if you want some help on this, let me know. I'd love to help. And I sensed some resistance when we were talking. So it's an offer. It's not like you don't have to say yes to this. And I noticed my instinct, like my default was to be offended that someone would see me as resistant, right? So it's like in a split second, you can say, I'm not resistant. And if we don't catch that, and we don't have that kind of awareness, we follow that feeling and that I'm offended. We follow that and we reply from that. And so in this moment, I was like, isn't that fascinating? And I just got really curious with myself. And I just got honest, and I was like, yeah, I was resistant. But without the judgment on being resistant, because as coaches, we like to think we're open-minded. We like to think, I love learning. I have values around learning and growth. So of course I'm not resistant. How dare you call me resistant? So if I just allow all of that to like, just let's park that over there for a second. What have I got against resistant? Actually nothing. And the truth is I am really resistant. And without the judgment on it, I'm resistant to it because I don't want to be pigeonholed into something and say yes to something that doesn't feel in alignment with how I want this thing to look, just so that we can solve the problem. So that was all what was surfacing for me. And so from there, I can go back and I can be like, yeah, I was so resistant. Here's what I'm resistant to. Not you, not help. I'm not resistant to any of that. I love that you're willing to help me. And I'm probably going to say no to a lot of things unless I feel in my body, because that's often how I receive my messages, is like, I know in my heart parts that this is the thing, this is what it is. And until I get that sensation, it's like, it's not that, it's not that, it's not that. So I could go back to this person that sent me the message and be like, yeah, I was really resistant. I still am resistant, but not to the help. So thank you. Let's get some time in. And that to me, Daniel, that's ownership. When we're all on our path of coming back home to ourselves, and we're being really super honest, and we're removing the judgments, then we get back to this like essence of love. And that's where my message comes from, of like appreciation and gratitude for someone who's in my corner wanting to help. And the appreciation and gratitude for me championing for that compass point inside of me that knows what I'm creating and isn't willing to compromise on it just to find a solution quickly. That's like there's a lot of heart going into what I'm creating. And so that, we're talking about not compromising the mission. It's like that learning to say no really authentically, and that learning to have communication that doesn't, it's not a knee-jerk reaction. It's not coming from that misunderstanding or misidentity of rejection is bad and you've called me something that I don't want to be called. It's like cleaning up all of that and then creating from what's left, what's underneath. And it's that energy that's way more powerful when it comes to creating anything, I think. Is this making sense, what I'm sharing?
100%. Yeah, I'm with you. Part of there's a lot in what you said, and I'd love for us to unpack it a bit further because I think it's super useful for all of us, right? And I say all of us too because even though I'm nodding and agreeing with you, I say, yeah, well, there's more for me to learn about this, right? How can I apply this more in my life? How can I go deeper with it? And part of what I get from what you just said is that complexity can be our friend. And I was thinking earlier when we were speaking about, we didn't use the word rules, but values, or this is always, honesty is always right. And I was reflecting on, so many religions have a set of rules, right? This is what you do. This is what you don't do. And there's a benefit in that because for a lot of us, it's challenging to be present and say, well, what about now? We want to oversimplify things. And so what I heard in your example just now is you got the suggestion that there might be some resistance, right? And what a lot of us would do in that moment, and I say us because I've certainly done this many times, be like, no, I'm not. Oh, hey, that's awfully resistant. Or, yes, I am, right? And that's just, that's binary, one or the other, and it's never just one or the other. It's both and. Like, okay. And so what I heard you say as you got present to it, and you said, okay, well, there is resistance. What's the resistance to? It's not just resistance bad. It's like, okay, there is resistance that has value here for me. And I don't want to be resistant to the help or to the generous offer from the person that was reaching out for support. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's 100% what I was sharing. Much more succinct version than my version. But yeah, I think it's a really, really important point that you're highlighting out of all of that is just there's a message in, like, we often feel the sensation in our body before we catch the story that's driving the sensation. And we automatically respond from the feeling because we want to get away from that feeling that's uncomfortable. And that's when we get righteous about things. That's when we get defensive about things. That's when we forget, who we are being as a nice human being, and actually it becomes more important to win or to put the other down. So I think that slowing down and really asking, like, all right, where is this located in my body? And this can take seconds, and you can do it privately. You don't have to do this long drawn out process, but it is essentially where am I feeling it? What does it want from me?
Yeah.
And then you start to listen to the answer that comes from there, and then you give yourself.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, so let's stay with that, though. I want to pull in something you said earlier, and you said it amidst a lot of other beautiful things you were saying, and so I'm going to highlight this because I think it's very pertinent to what you're speaking about now, too. I forget the exact words used, but something like self-acceptance, self-love being an important part of this. And, and I don't know how this is for you, but I know for me, there's an ease of jumping to the conclusion, oh no, I messed up, I'm bad, I did something wrong, and then that pulls up my defensiveness, right? And I've seen it with friends and clients and students, right? That we get resistant because we think something's wrong with us, right? And so what I heard you saying, and tell me if this is accurate, is that self-love, self-acceptance is a balancer or a gateway or something that can soften that fear of something's wrong with me enough that I could say, oh yeah, I wonder what that resistance is about. I wonder what's going on in there, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
is that jive?
Yeah, we had the last live event that I ran. Actually, it was earlier this month. I called it Love and Understanding. It was a Love and Understanding immersion. I got everybody heart-shaped sunglasses, and I had them put them on as a way of like, this is the lens that I want you to look out through. So, what would love say? What would love say in this moment? And people think this is so soft, but love. I mean, have you ever been heartbroken? Like, how much does it hurt? Right? It's like love is such a powerful, powerful energy. So there's nothing soft about this at all. So if you're willing to sit with that question of like, I'm looking at myself through the lens of love, almost like I'm a neutral observer and I'm looking at this Lisa here, and I'm looking at her, and I'm looking through the lens of love and compassion and see her suffering in her own mind about who she is and what she's done. And it's like, that's not the way out for her. So I want to invite her into a more loving presence with herself. Because if you know that you're going to judge yourself, going to shame yourself, going to beat yourself up for something that you've done, you're not going to be honest about it because you don't want to walk into that. So then you start to avoid, or you hide, or you lie. So I always feel like if you want to see something different about your behaviors, then bringing in that lens of love and compassion so that you can handle the heat of the conversation with yourself. Because you're going to do it in a very loving, gentle way where there's no judgment, there's no attachment to the judgment. I always think that that's where the biggest growth comes from for people. But if we're not honest, it's usually because we're not up for getting beaten up with the stick that we're about to beat ourselves up with. And the other thing that I like to do is just, there's lots of different ways I can work with people on this around, if this was a little kid that had lost its parent, in the park, would you go up and be like, stupid kid? Oh my God, you idiot kid. Why did you not keep your eye on your parent? No way. The kid's frightened. And that's what is happening inside of us. Whether we know it or not, there's usually some fear in there and we're afraid to look. So it's like, what would I do with a kid? Well, I'd probably like crouch down to its level and be like, hey, have you lost your mom? You want me to help you find her? So what if I was that way with myself in these moments? And then suddenly it's like, okay, that little inner child starts to feel more protected and more safe. And they can start to come up to these higher levels of consciousness. And they're like, oh, actually, I remember running off over there. Okay, let's go look over there. So we get new, fresh ideas. Our creativity and our minds kind of come alive when we're not dreading the, what I call the shit stick, like beating ourselves up. Yeah. There's tons of different ways you can approach this kind of work, but ultimately that is the principle that's underneath it all, just being way more loving with ourselves.
Okay, cool. I love it. I think of Derek Sivers' most recent book. He was a guest on the show, and we talked about his book called Useful, Not True, right? Which brings me back to an earlier part of our conversation, which is, I think, a super succinct way of saying, well, my belief that honesty is the right way of doing it, is that useful, right? Is it useful? There is no true, right? Is it useful? And self-love, going back to your tennis player analogy, right? Were 80% of the shots in? Well, was it true? Was it useful? Right? That's the question. And so what do we want to believe about ourselves? How do we want to regard ourselves in a way that's useful? And so loving, accepting is useful. We know it. So that brings two questions. I'll start with this. There's a saying, that we as teachers, counselors, therapists, we get into what we're doing because we need it, right? And you have just authored a book called Truly You. So what brought you to that? I'm guessing that there must be some way that you were feeling compromised in your authenticity in some way. Is that accurate? At some point?
Yeah, I mean, probably my whole life, like at some point, because I feel like I've reinvented and reimagined my life, like from a really early age. So I don't think we're static, beings. I think that we evolve and we grow and we get interested in new and different things and we outgrow ourselves almost.
Hmm.
So um, the book came about because I had invested in a program, a bigger program, and a book builder element of it was in this wider program. And I was like, well, I paid, so I may as well just go and put myself in the room and see what happens. So that's a little bit of my Yorkshire heritage of like, yeah, I'm gonna get the bargain here, so I'm gonna get my money's worth. So talk about conditioning. So off I went and I sat and I was listening to it, and then I was like, oh, may as well just jot a few ideas down. And then that just kept occurring. There was just this like, well, I may as well just do this thing as well, and this thing as well, and this thing. And so actually my mentors had said to me, why don't you, because a big part of my work back then was a coaching school and helping coaches grow their business. And so they were like, why don't you write the book for coaches that's going to help them grow organically? And I was like, that makes absolute sense to the intellect, but it didn't make any sense to my deeper wisdom.
Hmm.
So I started writing it, and again my body was just like, this is not it, this is not the thing. And so I stopped, and I was like, I'm going to write the book I want to write, and this is what came out of me. And yeah, I do feel like, I don't know if I would have necessarily years ago been able to say it was a mission or it was a passion, but I feel like I've always had it in me that I've always wanted people to live full lives. I don't want people to shrink and have some idea of themselves that they're, smaller than they are. I know I was definitely shy as a kid, and I left home at 19 and I went to London. And I come from a really beautiful family. I come from a beautiful city. York is my home city. So there was nothing that I could complain about my upbringing at all. But I remember getting to London and being like, what the hell? Like the bright lights of the West End, this is incredible. And I started to come out of myself. And I started to meet people from Australia, and they were traveling the world. And I was like, what? You can travel the world in your 20s? What? Like, this hadn't occurred to me. From my upbringing, it was like, I'm going to get my grades and then I'm going to go to uni. And so I quit uni and I went off backpacking around Europe for 3 months. And then I went to Australia and lived there for a year. And I feel like that was really the start of having my eyes opened to, it doesn't always have to be the way that you think it is. And you have such agency to create something new and different if you want. And so I think really that's what the book is about. Like having an understanding of the human operating system, of what a lot of what we've talked about in this conversation is around how the stories create the feelings, and we just get so automatic about responding to them, and we don't think we've got any agency or choice to see something different. So that whole first part of the book is around this understanding, and then the middle section is all around like life lessons. Like, are you on the court? Are you playing the game? Are you being loving? Are you projecting all your judgments out onto others? There's so many different life lessons that I've experienced from my time as a coach, but in life in general, and having great teachers and guides and great experiences to grow from. And then the final part of the book is an invitation to like life 2.0, which is essentially, what, now you've got a better understanding of who you are. And now you've got an understanding of this like intelligence that lives in you, this like vibrant energy that lives in you, whose its very nature is to create. It's like, what do you want to birth through you? You're a vessel, and this energy lives inside, and it is asking you for something. It's like, you're the tool. You're just the tool So let something else have the remote control and let it move you. And that, I feel like, Daniel, that's what happened with the book. Because there were moments, I did actually really enjoy the writing process, but there were moments where my brain doesn't like structure. So when the editor and the publisher were trying to get me to write, they're like, Lisa, you gotta say what you're gonna say. Like, you gotta teach people what you're about to teach them, and then you gotta teach them it, and then you've got to summarize what you've taught them. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I just want my chapter title to do all of that for me, and then I just want to free write. So I found it really challenging to follow the structure of the book, of the like what they were teaching me to how to write. But there were moments where I found myself, like, I was sitting on the sofa and I'm like, I'm not going to do anything today. I deserve a day off. I'm having a rest. And then before I knew it, I was at my laptop and I'm writing, and I'm like, what the hell am I? How do I even get over here? Like, I don't even remember moving. I was having a day off. So I feel like that's what I'm pointing to. And I talk about vibrancy and vibrant living. It's like, what if we just got out of the way and allowed that to have the remote control and have fun with us? And yeah, I think it was that was in the driver's seat when I was like, I'm not writing this other book, I'm writing this one. And there's lots of things that don't make sense in my life to the intellect that have just been creating the most rich experiences. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you. Well, and yeah, we are infinite and infinitely evolving, right? Every moment is new, and right there's that. I don't know if it's an urban myth or it's accurate, but every 7 years, every cell recreates itself in the body, and probably a lot quicker, right? We can be anybody, we can be anything in the space of a breath because everything is there. So, lest I get too philosophical for a moment, you've kindly offered a gift of your book to our audience, and so we'll get to that in a minute. The truth is, and I'm an author, and I'll say this briefly then, just to relate to what you said. I'm on a sabbatical right now in a different location, and part of that is to write my next book, which is another nonfiction book. It's called The Fastest Learner Wins. And literally earlier today, as I sat down for writing, part of me said, oh, I really want to finish this prose poem that's coming through, and I'm gonna work on that first right now. I still want to write this one. So that thing about listening to what's true inside, what's truly you, what spirit wants for us, it's powerful. And my diversion to that for a moment is I love reading. And I'm also aware that a lot of people don't read. So even though you are kindly going to offer your book as a gift, there are some people that will say yes and then not read it. And some people will be like, oh, I'm not even going to read it, so I want to. So what's one thing you can offer for those that are non-readers? Like, what's one piece to pull from your work that will help people best on that journey, help them in some way on that journey to being truly you, truly themselves?
Good question. I would say I would say you have to be willing. I would say you have to be willing to actually look within and be honest about, let's get accurate. Where am I? Where am I with my health? Where am I with my relationships? Where am I with my finances? What's an area of life that I would love to see some change in? And if you can be honest about that, then get committed to it. And I would also say it's okay to say, I don't want to change. I'm not ready. Because otherwise, all we're doing is beating ourselves up again, thinking, I say I want this, but I'm not doing it. Shame on me. And so I think just own it. Like, that ownership piece is so freeing. you can say, I was joking with a friend of mine. We knew each other many, many years ago. There was a bit of a drinking culture in New Zealand when we were living out there, and it was like we knew each other like 2009. And I sent her a message. She was watching Wimbledon, and it was in Canada, so the time difference was like 9 in the morning there. And I was like, "Get yourself a glass of prosecco and some strawberries and cream." She's like, "Lisa, it's 9 in the morning," and I was like, "Oh, you've changed." And it was a joke, right? It was a joke. She said, "Yeah, I have." And I was like, "Good for you, girl. I love that." Just that standing in a certainty of like, I have changed, and I'm good with that. And so if somebody is saying like, um, I'm not where I thought I would be right now in my with my money or with my relationships. Yeah, I'm not, and that's okay. And that in itself, don't have anybody else be like judging you for it. Like they can judge, but it's whether you judge yourself or not is where the freedom lies. So it's like, yeah, I'm not, and I want to make a difference. Let's commit to that. Or yeah, I'm not, and right now, it's not a priority. So that's okay too. Um, yeah, that's what I would say I would want to leave people with.
Okay, cool. I love it. Thank you. All right. Well, and then for those who are, I have to watch my own judgment about the value of reading. For those who would love to say yes to your offer of your book, how do we do that?
I'm gonna give you the link, and people can log onto the link. Just copy the link, log onto the link, and put your details in, and then I will send you a digital copy of
Oh,
Truly You. Yeah.
okay,
And
perfect.
I also, just to fly the flag of possibility for people, I won worst book club attendee at the book club that I was in when I lived in London. I never went to any of the events in my house. I never read any of the books. And then fast forward like 1 year later, and I discovered coaching. I discovered all of these incredible books around growth and spirituality, and I was hooked. And now you should see my bookshelf. So I went from worst book club member to like an avid reader, Audible, books on the bookshelf, writing my own book. So I'm just flying the flag of possibility for never say never, never say never.
Well, thank you, and you just gave a preview sort of testimonial for my upcoming book too, which is about learning, and because so many of us have identified ourselves at some point as, oh, I don't do that. I'm not someone who reads, or I don't learn well, or I've got learning disabilities, right? And that my biggest premise is like you could change that if you want. You could be somebody that reads 10 books a week if you want to, or not. It's up to you. It's all possible. Okay, cool. So what I did is I put the link for your generous gift into the comments. So for those who are watching live, you can click on that right now if you want to get that. And then let's make a bridge here for because some people will be watching by rebroadcast won't see those comments. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you or to tune into what you're up to, Lisa?
So I'm on all the social media platforms, but you can find me on my website, lisahoppercoaching.com. And all my socials are linked to the website as well. It's the best way.
Okay, cool. And I will say for people in the audience, if you are watching by rebroadcast and you don't get that link, feel free to email me and just let me know you saw or heard the show, and I will get it to you. Yeah, and so you can email me, daniel@danielaaron.com. Okay, Lisa, is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you would like to bring forward here before we wrap things up?
Another good question. No, I think I want to just say an acknowledgement actually for you. I if you could see inside my head, there's like 1,000 thoughts a second. And when someone presents a question to me, it's like goes off in there, like the many, many, many different ways I could answer. And I always want to acknowledge somebody who can hold a space and actually pull out the threads. And there's a level of presence and listening in you that I experience. where I really feel like you've followed the thread and you've heard the messages and the principles in what I'm sharing. So, to me, that's an art, and not everybody is as skilled or experienced, or I want to say it's something that you will have cultivated, I feel, over time. So I just want to acknowledge you for your part in having the conversation be the conversation that it was. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you. I take that in. I appreciate that, and my mind works similarly, so I can relate to what you're speaking of. So cool. Thank you. I think that brings us to the last question, the big question, the final question. So big that you can't even answer it, but also so big and impossible that you can't get it wrong. And you may have already spoken this. I don't know. Maybe something different or new will come to you now. But is it okay if I ask you the big question?
I would love you to.
Okay, cool. So the big question is this, and why I say it's impossible is you've got clearly so much experience, wisdom, heart. There's so much that you can offer, right? Even if we had a 10-hour conversation here, we wouldn't run out. And if I ask you now to distill, to bring all of that down, if you had only one thing you could share with our audience to help them live their most vibrant, thriving life, what's that one thing?
That is a really big question. I'm gonna go with get present and trust your intuition, and find the courage to follow it.
Thank you. We could almost rephrase that as be truly you.
Yeah.
I think, right?
Just follow me around
Yeah.
everywhere I know, and every time I have like a really long way of saying something, you can just come in there with the succinct version. I would love that.
Well, it's, what I love in your response to that big question is you paused and tuned in, right? And gave a real answer. So being present and giving yourself the permission to evolve and be present and trust your intuition as you're encouraging us to do. You're modeling that. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome. Welcome. Goes back to what we said right early on, and like we're dynamic and moving, and you ask the same question. This in 5 minutes, I might have a different answer. In 10 minutes, I might have an answer. And that piece around truth, it's not truth with a capital T. It's like no one's lying if you hear them say one thing in this minute, and then actually the answer is different in a different minute. They're just feeling into something new.
Yeah, beautifully said. I love it. All right, Lisa, thank you not just for investing this time with us. I appreciate that, but also for all this work you've done in yourself and in your life, and to write a book. Goodness, you've overcome a lot. I can feel that in you, and you've done it in a really generous way, bringing a book forward, bringing lots of stuff that's coming out from you now. So thank you for being you. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you for seeing me, and thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, pleasure. My pleasure. All right, and y'all in our audience, thank you. Right? Because not only are you interested in a vibrant, thriving life, you are actually doing something about it. You're getting some education, maybe a little entertainment in the midst. And again, I encourage you, I implore you, do something with this today. Like take one of the things that popped in your mind as Lisa was speaking so beautifully and say, yeah, I'm going to try that out. I'm going to experiment. I'm going to learn something more with that, right? The rubber meets the road in your vibrant, thriving life when you take some new actions. Be truly you. Take some new actions. We will be back soon for another show. Thank you. Aloha. I love you. Ciao. Mahalo for tuning in to the Art of Vibrant Living show, y'all. I'm Daniel Aaron, and may you live with great vibrancy.